Did you know that 91% of people who listen to this podcast don't follow or subscribe to the show? The more people who follow the podcast means more episodes, more competitions, better prizes, and so much more.
At your job, do you ever have to deal with a nose roller? How about a snub pulley? Well, if you're installing a new conveyor belt system, dealing with the different components can sound like you're speaking a foreign language. Luckily, you've got a team ready to help. Grainger's technical product specialists are fluent in maintenance, repair, and operations. So whenever you want to talk shop, just reach out. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
3 things you'll learn in this episode. The potential reason Myles Lewis-Skelly did the Haaland celebration. Which Arsenal legend said Myles does things that cannot be taught, and how a soft football changed it all. This is the story of Myles Lewis-Skelly. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the 18-year-old wonder kid who's getting Arsenal and England fans very excited about the future. If you haven't heard his name yet, then, well, get used to it, because it's going to be shouted a lot. And that, of course, is Arsenal's first team player and England under-19, Myles Lewis-Skelly. Before we go into this episode on Myles, let's do a few of your shout-outs and your messages. The first one says, "Hello from Australia. Hi Darren, my name is Raf and I'm 8 years old. I support Real Madrid and Manchester City. I play for the under-9s Geelong Soccer Club. Please do a shout-out to my teammates Archie and my coach Lewis. Could you please do an episode on Gabriel Jesus? Thank you for the greatest podcast ever." Well, Raf, thank you very much for being a listener. Always good to hear that we've got listeners all the way over there in Australia. And don't you worry, Jesus is on my list of episodes, which I need to get on and write and record and release for you lot to listen to. And of course, a shout out to everybody at your football club and your coaches, who I'm sure do such a wonderful job. The next one says, "Hi Darren, I love your podcast so much and I listen every night before I go to bed. I'm a 9-year-old football fan and player, and I play for a Danish football club called GVI, and I train once a week with FCK. Well, a massive shout out to you. I think your name is pronounced Arian or Arian, I'm not sure, but hopefully I've got one of those right, and I'm sure you know who you are, and thank you so much for being a listener as well." And the last one is a huge shout out to Max, who's 9 years old from Glasgow. And Max says, "I love listening to your podcast. Could you give a shout out to my friends Brody, Louis, Darry and Alan, and my football team Busby AFC? And can you please do an episode on Jeremy Frimpong? I like him as a player." That is from Max O'Neill in Glasgow. Well, Max, a huge shout out to you, to all your friends, your football team, your coaches, and every single person you know. Now, that's all we've got time for shout outs and messages in this episode. But if you'd like the opportunity of getting a shout out, then you can either leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or head to the website www.footballforkidspodcast.com. That is the best place to get yourself on the podcast. Right then, let's get into this episode, shall we? On the 18-year-old wonder kid, known as Myles Lewis-Skelly. Myles was born on the 26th of September in 2006 in Denmark Hill, London. Now, on the podcast, we have covered hundreds of players, and a lot of the time, when we have spoken about players, there has been football in the family. Whether that's from the point of view of just being a casual fan, a football fanatic, or there being a player in some sort of way, shape or form. In Myles' case, football wasn't really a big thing, and his parents weren't massive on football, in particular his mum. But when he was around 2 years old, one of his mum's friends brought a present round for him. and that was a soft football. And that was it. That soft football became attached to his feet, and it didn't leave his feet, well, ever. Myles' mum has said that he was a very lively little lad when he was younger. He was full of beans and needed something to burn that energy, which seemed like it was never ending. So to burn that energy, she would take him to the park with a football for a kickabout, and eventually he started to really get into it. Myles' mum said that she knew that he loved football and she could see that he enjoyed it so very much, but in the early days she couldn't quite see how good he actually was. Friends and other footballing parents would make a lot of comments about this young lad who would fly up and down the pitch with the ball so neatly to his feet as he drifted in and out of players doing his thing. One of the things that Myles' mum remembers about him is he was maybe a little too polite on the football pitch when he was younger. He would constantly be saying sorry for losing the ball or whatever it was. He was a very tame little lad. Although politeness and manners are super important, I guess when it comes to football you need to find a balance of being very respectable but still meaning business, and this was something which Myles developed into nicely. It would only be a matter of time before young Myles would start to get noticed for his rapid speed, his slick skills and his unbelievable amount of determination. And the club who would notice him and get him on board first would be the mighty Arsenal. Myles joined the under-9s at Arsenal and did his thing, and those around him could see how much he loved doing it. He would be practicing, training, playing games and doing anything that he possibly could with a football, and when he was doing that he always had a big smile on his face. However, his mum said that she only really started to see how talented he was when he was around 11 or 12 years old at Arsenal. She said that the Arsenal Youth Academy sessions seemed a little bit like a posh youth club, but then one day it clicked and his mum could see what the coaches and other footballing people were seeing. This kid had bundles of talent and the drive to get him a very long way indeed. One of the things that often goes unsaid and unnoticed when it comes to players playing at clubs like Arsenal is the commitment, not only from the players but from the parents. Myles would need to get to training 3, 4, 5 times a week after school and then get to games almost every single weekend. So not only did he have to be super committed, but his parents did too, and I'm sure he appreciates that a lot. If you've got somebody who takes you to training and games and stands out in the pouring rain, make sure they know how much you appreciate them. Over the years, there have been so many occasions that Myles has impressed, but a game in particular was in the youth team at Arsenal. It was a game against Manchester City. It was a semi-final of the FA Youth Cup and it was 1-1 with literally seconds of the game left. Myles Lewis-Skelly out of nowhere finds himself some space into the box, and as the ball comes over the heads of everybody else, he jumps up and knocks it in with a header, hitting the back of the net. The Emirates was really busy for this game and the Emirates went bonkers. Myles was just 16 years old and he was creating these types of moments already. So many top footballers and coaches over the years have sung his praises, but there's one player in particular, a former Arsenal and England player and then the under-18s Arsenal manager, Jack Wilshere, said that Myles is one of those players who does things you just cannot teach. He is a very special player. Myles was always destined to be a first team player at Arsenal. He was clearly very good with a football. He had a great footballing brain, but what really made him stand out was his unbelievably good attitude and what a pleasure he was to work with. So in 2023 he signed his first professional contract with the club, and then in September 2024 he made his senior team Premier League debut for the club in a game against Manchester City. This was a game that involved a lot of yellow cards, and unfortunately for Myles, he ended up being booked even before his Premier League debut, as there was a big argument which broke out on the touchline between some of the Arsenal players and some of the Manchester City players. Apparently, two of the people who had an argument on that day before Myles made his Premier League debut was Erling Haaland and Myles. So the rumours go, Erling Haaland said to Myles, "Who are you?" Fast forward to Sunday the 2nd of February and Myles scored his first senior team Premier League goal in a game against no other than Manchester City. And Arsenal won that game 5-1. Myles scored Arsenal's third goal in that game. He ran over to the corner flag and did the very famous Haaland celebration. I reckon there may well be a reason he did this. What do you think? Myles Lewis-Skelly is just 18 years old. He's a player who's been spoken about on numerous occasions for so many reasons. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch as time goes by, and I think it's fair to say Arsenal fans are going to enjoy watching him. Like all the young players we cover on this show, we know we're going to have to do a part 2, 3 and probably even a part 4 in the future on this player, because I reckon he's destined for greatness. So remember, if you know someone who loves football, especially if they're an Arsenal fan, then please tell them about Football for Kids. And whether you're playing football soon, watching it on the telly or pitch side, I hope that you enjoy the game. See you next time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
At Kroger Pharmacy, care is what's most convenient for you. Care is being here when you need us. We're open evenings and weekends. Care is helping you save more. Most insurance plans and discount cards are accepted at your local Kroger Pharmacy. Care is saving you time by managing your prescriptions online. You can request refills, check order status, and more. Care is convenience that works for everyone. Kroger Health, a world of care is in store. Services and availability vary by location. Age and other restrictions may apply. For coverage, consult your health insurance company. Visit the pharmacy or our site for details.